Good morning. So today we're going to talk about area problems and projectile motion. Area problems, we're going to be looking at a rectangle, and remember the area of a rectangle is your length times your width. Okay. So we may know our area, we may know our length, we may know something about our width. Okay, so these are going to be some little word problems. So write down what you know, and then do your multiplication. And then when you do your multiplication, you're going to have, for these area problems, you're going to have a quadratic equation. Okay, so okay, so all of these are going to have a quadratic equation that you're going to have to work through. Okay, so let's do some examples here. Alright, so given the diagram below, find the value of x if the area of the rectangle is 78 square meters. So my area is going to be equal to 78. So I know my length is going to be x plus 7. My width is going to be x. Okay, so your area is going to be equal to your length times your width. So this is going to be 78 is equal to x plus 7 times x. So 78 is going to be equal to x squared plus a 7x. Okay, solve, so move the 78 to the other side. So you're going to get x squared plus 7x minus a 78. So now you're going to try to factor this quadratic. So what multiplies together to give you 78 and adds together to give you a 7? That is going to be, x plus 3, no, x plus 13, and x minus 6. We're going to set both of those equal to 0. So x is going to be a negative 13, and x is going to be a 6. Well, can your units ever be negative? Okay, we can never have negative units here. So x is going to be equal to 6. And what units? It's my area is in square meters, so my unit x is going to be in meters. Okay, so let's do another one. Let's do this one where we're going to have to find our equation. The length of a rectangle garden. Okay, so the length of a rectangle garden is 4 meters more than its width. So I don't know anything about its width, so my width is going to be my x. My length is 4 meters more than the width, so it's going to be 4 plus x. And the area total is going to be 60 square meters there. Should be square meters. Okay. Find the dimensions of the rectangle. So we know that the area is 60. So that's going to be 60 is equal to your 4 plus x times x. So it's 60 plus 4x plus x squared. Move the 60 over, so you're going to get 0 equals 4x plus x squared minus a 60. All right, well, is that in any order that it's supposed to be in? No. So we need to rearrange the order. So we will have the x squared first. Oops. I'll have the x squared first. Then we'll have the 4x. And then we'll have the negative 60. All right, so can that factor? Can something multiply together to give you negative 60 and add together to give you a 4? What's that going to be? That'll be what? X plus a 10 and x minus a 6. Set both of those equal to 0. So x is going to be a -10 and x is going to be a 6. Well, can't be negative, so my width is going to be 6 and my length is going to be 10. So it's going to be 6 meters by 10 meters. Okay. All right, so projectile motion, that's the next thing that we're going to talk about. Okay. Projectile motion is maybe finding a maximum height of an object. So maybe it's like falling off of a building and you want to find its maximum height. Okay, here's my building here. Okay, or you're hitting a golf ball, you're launching a rocket, you're throwing a basketball up in the air. And anytime that you want to find its maximum height, that is considered your vertex. So the maximum height would be your vertex. Okay, so remember it would be -b over 2a. And then the function evaluated at -b over 2a. Okay, so anytime you're looking for the maximum height, the y part of it will usually give you your height, and then the x part of it usually will give you your time. Okay, so usually your projectile motion is a function of time. Okay, so projectile motion usually looks like something like this. I don't know, something like this. Okay, this would be sometimes what a projectile motion looks like. So here's your height at a certain time. Okay. Okay, so anytime you want to find the maximum height, you're going to be looking for the vertex. Okay, if you want to know the time when the height hits the ground, so like maybe if it hits the ground, then that would mean that my height would be equal to 0 if it was going to be on the ground. If you wanted to know the time when it hit the ground, then you would let h be 0. I don't know, then if you said at height of a golf ball at, or the time that it takes a golf ball to get 12 feet in the air, so then your height would be 12. Okay, so when it hits the ground, that means that our h is going to be equal to a 0. Okay, I'll always give you the function here later, like in Algebra 2. You may have to, or calculus, you may have to actually find the function. So let's start off. A soccer ball is kicked from the ground with an initial upward velocity of 90 feet per second. The equation h equals -16t squared plus 90t gives the height h of the ball after t seconds. First part, I want to find the maximum height of the ball. Okay, so the maximum height is that right there, remember, is the vertex. So it's going to be the t part of it. It's going to be your x now. So it's going to be a -b over 2a. And so -90 over 2 times a -16. So -90 over a -32. It's going to give you a decimal, 2.81. It asks for the maximum height, okay? Didn't ask for the time, it says the maximum height. So then that means I'm going to plug 2.8 seconds in to find my height. Okay, so I'm going to have -16 times 2.81 squared plus 90 times 2.81. Okay, I want to put this in my calculator You square first, multiply by negative 16, then add 90 times your 2.81, and you get 126.56 feet. So the maximum height is going to be 126.56. So when I kick that soccer ball from the ground with a velocity of 90 feet per second, the maximum height is going to be 126.56 feet. Okay? So the second part here says how many seconds, so seconds means my time, will it take for the ball to reach the ground. So when it's reaching the ground, that means my h is going to be equal to a 0. So that means I'm going to say negative 16t squared plus 90t is going to be equal to a 0. So we factor this, right? So I'm going to factor out, I can factor out what? A t, at least there. Between negative 16 and a 90, there would be a 2 in there as well, so negative 2t. So when I factor out that negative 2t, then I'll be left with an 8t plus a 45. Set both of those equal to 0, so negative 2t equals 0, and an 8t plus a 45 is equal to 0. So here t would be equal to 0, and over here, whoops, sorry, when I factored out that negative, that should turn into a negative there. Sorry. So then I move, so this will be 8t is equal to 45, and then divide both sides by 8, so t is going to be equal to, I don't know, 5.63 seconds. Okay. 0 seconds, okay, will not be, because at 0 seconds, that's our starting point, right? So how long does it take to get to the ground is going to be 5.63 seconds. Okay? All right, let's do another one. A penny is dropped from the Empire State Building, which is 1,250 feet tall. If the penny's pathway can be modeled by the equation h equals negative 16t squared plus 1250, how long would it take the penny to strike a 6-foot tall person? So that means that my h is going to be equal to a 6. Okay, so that means I'm going to say negative 16t squared plus 1250 is going to be equal to a 6. So when I'm saying how long, that means I'm looking for t. Okay, so I'm going to subtract my 1250. See, I've got a square term and I've got a number, so I could just subtract my 1250 here. So I'm going to have a negative 16 squared. When I subtract it, it's going to be what? A negative 1244. Divide both sides by negative 16. So you're going to get a t squared is going to be equal to a positive. And when you divide 1244, it's going to give you a decimal by 16. It's going to give you a 77.75. And then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So you're going to get t is going to be equal to a positive and a negative 8.82. Okay. Well, we know that t cannot be negative 8.82, right? We don't want to go backwards in time. So our answer here is going to be a positive 8.82 seconds. Okay, so far so good? All right, let's look here. All right, the Apollo's Chariot rollercoaster at Busch Gardens moves at 101 feet per second. The equation of the ride can be represented by the equation h equals negative 16t squared plus 101t plus 10. What is the maximum height reached by the ride? So maximum height means I'm looking for the vertex. And I'm looking for the h part of the vertex. Okay? So remember, that means that I'm looking for after I plug that negative b over 2a back in. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. Because remember, this represents your height, and this is your time. Okay, so your time is going to be negative b over 2a, and so it's going to be a negative 101 divided by 2 times a negative 16. So a negative 101 divided by a negative 32 is going to be 3.16. So now your height at that time, right, because it's your time, because it's looking for the maximum height, then I'm going to plug that in. So it's going to be negative 16 times 3.16 squared plus 101 times 3.16 plus a 10. Put that in your calculator. Order of operations, I'm going to square first and then multiply by the negative 16. Multiply there. So your height here is going to be 169.39, and it's in feet. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So now I want y'all to finish up those worksheets, and y'all have a great day.